I don't know, maybe just the pressure of life, the pressure of boxing, being a good dad. It's just letting it out right now. I'm just letting it out because I'm a fighter. This is what I do and I love to do. And I know this is how, if you're battling anxiety and depression, you can get over it.
Well, the sport of boxing, they call it the sweet science. And it is not a perfect science, but it's definitely a sweet science.
Well, Ali is asking for it. Stokes is trying to give it to him.
It's really hard to describe until you actually do it, but it's a very tactical sport. The minute you get tired physically, you get tired mentally. The minute you get tired mentally, doesn't matter how much physical endurance you have, you're done.
I realized I don't think I have it anymore because I got the ability to stay in shape, but I don't got the fighting guts, I don't think, anymore.
It taught me, and I always will tell people, like, I can take things from boxing that I learned in boxing and apply it into my daily life, right?
We're not just going in there with a haymaker trying to pray for the best, because everybody that walks inside of a gym knows how to throw a punch. It takes nothing to throw a punch on a bag, but it takes skills and it takes discipline to step inside that ring and learn the defense and learn the craft and learn the arts of the sport.
And again, it's not just hand quickness, it's the movement of the head, the way he rolls with punches.
It brings discipline into your life. It brings patience into your life. It brings structure, but it also brings self-confidence to someone.
Floyd Money Mayweather.
In boxing, you'll have the same tools, and you're presented with exactly the same tools. It's how you use them and how tactically you're able to basically, open your opponent up, but it really is the game of chess inside the ring.
The misconception is, blood, guts, glory, right? That's not what boxing is. You use a lot of your mental ability to actually win a boxing fight.
He showed that he had a new mentality tonight. He came out here and he lifted the strap in spectacular fashion from Ito, and now he's a new world champ.
I admired the coaches, I admired the fighters, and I studied the fighters. I studied the art form, I studied the science, I studied how coaches deal with different situations. So to me, it's art, it's science, it's all of the above.
He had to be helped in every other way. His character had to be developed and strengthened. He had to learn discipline, and he had to learn, of course, to face his problems and not avoid them.
People seeing from a young age that sport can be utilized not just as a competitive sport, but also as a cross-training, as a mental sport, as a physical, emotional sport. It's a sport of emotion where you have to control your own emotions because you've got someone there in front of you trying to pick you apart. If you're already picking yourself apart, you don't have time to figure out what that person in front of you is doing. Boxing, there is a component of fighting in it. It's a survival, fight versus fight. But realistically, it's a way of life.
It's fighting a form of rehabilitation, of being able to get back to where you want to be.
Danny Garcia again, I had to be back in the ring. I had to do what I love and be a fighter. People ask me every day, you make good money in boxing, why you still fight? I feel like I'm a fighter. This is what I do. Same way as Warren Buffett is 90 years old and still making money in stocks. I love to fight. So this is what I love to do.
So you'll always hear everybody. It doesn't matter what demographic they're from. It doesn't matter how much money, how little money they're from, or what area of the world they're from, what area of the community they're from. Every single person will say either boxing has changed my life or boxing has saved my life.
It's a dream for me as your opponent to have both arms coming in because I know you're open on both sides. Don't turn away, don't push away, don't look away. Break! Step out, step back in again.
I think one thing I do is I do love making people happy. And, there's people say that's a negative. People say that, you shouldn't worry about what other people think. Well, I do care. I mean, without people, I've got nothing. So that's where that came from.
Jennifer, the wifey. Okay, so we used to be at a gym called Premier Fitness. I used to work at that gym. I used to be the boxing coach at that gym. And she used to work at another Premier Fitness. And she came to our gym, I would say like 18 years ago. We did some pads, we did some workouts together, and we kind of just felt each other's vibes and kind of just, like everything was working. Everything was kind of working on the up and ups, and we were in a really good spirits, having really good conversations. So we decided to kind of do some stuff together. So what we did is Jen actually, and this is her forward thinking and her way, the way she is, she got an apartment on top of a salon and made the living room into our first gym. Yeah. Out of that gym, we were there for maybe a year, and then it finally grew to another location, and then to another location, and to another location. So at one point, we had 4 locations between the two of us. And we're like, why are we spending all this rent on 4 locations?
One time when I first started, every boxer I had was like super heavyweight. So it would be me holding pads for these guys, and people would call cops because they're like, there's a little girl getting beaten up outside of my house. They didn't know who I was. And my parents were like, you gotta stop doing this here. So finally I had to find a better spot to do it. And I found a larger warehouse and basically got a biggest ring I could because I was trying to prove myself. That's the one thing that still consists in the ring that I've got here is the same ring I started off with. And basically just kept on evolving from there.
Majority of people don't see all the work that she's put in. Majority of people just see her in that position, right? I see all the heartache. I see all the tears. We have those conversations that are hard. It's all about how to break down those stigmas, how to break down all those things so that she can be glorious as a woman or in a position that she can flourish. So it's tough for her, but I think the sport that we are in is a tough sport, and you have to be a tough person.
Jen, she's a winner. There's 2 types of winners that I've experienced in my life. There's someone who wins only when someone else loses. But then there's another type of winner, someone that seeks to help others succeed, and that's Jen.
We've now become friends. She's my coach, she's my mentor. She's really somebody that I look up to. It's my person. If I have a question, a problem with the client, a question about how do I she's my person, right?
Head body. Her head may move, her body stays still, right? And then move around her, not in, around.
But she's a great coach. She's a great coach. She sees things from a different perspective as well. That's what makes our dynamic so good, because she's a judge and a referee, and seeing it from that aspect only makes me a better coach and makes our fighters a better coach.
Jennifer has been reffing for about 5 years now, and when she's not the third person in the ring, she's ringside, acting as a judge.
You can tell right away as soon as you met her, she just had a different drive.
So the fight to end cancer started really specifically because I had a friend, it was a family friend, who was fighting cancer. It was the first time I ever saw someone going through the actual reality of cancer. You hear people, everyone's touched by cancer. I've got friends, I've got family. I've lost friends, I've lost family, but you don't see it until you actually have to help somebody through it. And in this case, I wasn't really much of a help. I didn't feel like much of a help. I felt like I needed to do more, and that was a question I had for her. And she was about 9 years into stage 4 cancer. And I said, one day just hanging out with her, just one of my biggest inspirations, what can I do to help you? And I didn't know at the time until she spoke to me about things that if you're being treated for cancer with a treatment that's not actually been recognized by the government, you are paying for that treatment. So if it's in experimental stage, which If you know anything about cancer and anything about any kind of disease, technically your body gets used to it. You know, different cancers metastasize, they change, and it's always evolving, just like everything else in the world. Well, so does the medicine have to evolve with it. And so it's not, you don't find one cure and all of a sudden that's a cure. You have to keep on evolving and also treating very specific to that person. So I didn't know that. And when she told me she was paying upwards of like, I don't know, $60,000 to $100,000 per year just to be alive, I was like, oh my God, what can I do to help you?
Well, like cancer impacts us all, and it will at some point in our lives, whether it's directly personally or whether it's a friend of a friend. At the time, I dedicated my fight to end cancer to a woman. I'm from South Africa. She's from South Africa. She was like my second mom. She went through chemo twice. I had an aunt as well at the same time who was diagnosed with cancer. So I dedicated my fight to them because it impacted, like my second mom, she impacted me directly. But my aunt, I wasn't that close to her, but I saw what it did to my mom, how it upset my mom and the rest of my extended family.
When I first started, I wanted to raise funds. You know, it was very specifically, you know, what can I do to raise money for one person or, you know, for the people I care about. Very quickly, within that year, I realized it's not my fight. It's not about who I can raise money for. It's, you know, what can I raise money for? How do I, you know, not just help that one person, but how do I help the masses? It was very specific to a person when I first started it. You know, this woman, she made it out for the first fight. She made it out, her and her family made it out, and it was really inspiring to see her come in. She made it through the whole fight, and the next year, she couldn't make it, and she ended up passing away in 2013. But the goal with that fight was originally specific to one person. When I realized when I started fighting for the one person who mattered to me, there was like countless others that the fight mattered to other people. So everyone that I collected to help me through, you know, putting together this event also had their story. It was a fight, it was a struggle. First year, you know, I had news agencies say, nah, you know what, sorry, that's not the image we want. And it's like literally those are the words they'd use. And I'm just like, what is the image you want? Like, you know, and they're like, oh, you're perfect, but the sport you chose is just like, it's a brutal sport. And I'm like, actually it's not, but all right, why don't you come as a spectator, see what it's all about, and then talk to me next year. So it really grew from there, and the momentum started building on itself. So that's kind of how it started.
When I fought Fight to End Cancer, it was only the second year. Each year it grows and grows. And if I'll use this as the example. My year that I fought, they were looking for people to fight. Now there's wait lists.
I think next step, so I'm still kind of trying to think bigger and, you know, how to impact more and how to get grassroots, but also how to, you know, create a movement that not just is impactful in Canada, but impactful across the world. So different scholarships, different things that we can do to help people who are actually the change makers. So, you know, who's going to go to medical school and be that person who finds that cure for cancer that doesn't have an expiry date. It went from being, you know, a specific to one person to being, you know, how do I help and how do I make a movement that everyone can be a part of, number one, but also everyone can be helped by, number two. When I started Fight to End Cancer, actually, is when I realized that I could not just use that sport and use my experience to better myself, but actually there's an equal amount of giving back to the community that I had no idea I was stepping towards. And now if I keep on growing myself and not passing that knowledge along, and not, you know, helping the people around me and the community around me, then it's a very selfish experience, because what is knowledge if you just take it and die with it?
One side to defend against the side that makes sense. So if I'm here, using that side to defend against that side. If I'm on this side, again, same idea. If I throw a punch over here, making sure you're ready.
When it comes to the boxing, the best thing about doing this is working with young athletes. A young athlete can walk in here and that first day you tell him that you have an absolutely beautiful jab. He goes home, sits on the kitchen table, tells his mom, Coach Virgil said I have a beautiful jab. That kid never knew he had a beautiful jab, but now he does. And when he comes inside that gym, he's gonna work on that jab. He's gonna perfect that jab. So what we do to these kids gives us that value, that gives us that motivation to kind of keep going, because they are so moldable. And that's kind of where our love is. Like, we have 20 young athletes under 16 years old, and they are all willing to do anything and everything we ask them to do, and they want to compete. And that's a beautiful thing as a coach, to have all of those athletes.
Around with making contact with your left hand with your jab. Okay? See our feints, you still want to see the stutter steps. Okay? The goal is to land that right hand down to the body. Set your traps up to land that right hand to the body. Teach wants a second attack after the go.
Here at Kingsway, there's a beginning stage, there's a reflection stage, there's a middle stage, and then there is that competitive stage, right? So that's what I love about this gym, is it's for everybody. But for me as a coach, I speak to the individual outside of this environment. I set the expectations high. I let them understand, when you come in here, you respect all the coaches that are in here.
They know exactly where we are. They know exactly what their experience was here. So when they're an adult going through the 20s to 30s, you know they're gonna come back in here and work out. And those kind of clients and those kind of fighters, we will have for the rest of their lives, because the impact that we make now at such an early age will stay with them forever. And even if they don't, that experience of having them here will take them to another gym if they need to, and have their skill set, because we provided them that skill set.
Switch.
Whether you come from a rough neighborhood or you come from a well affluent neighborhood, it doesn't matter. The expectations are still high in the beginning. And then I just let them know, if it's not a good fit for you, that's fine too. There's many other gyms you can go to, but this is how we work here.
We've had kids walk in here and just want to come in, and they don't care about the sport, they don't care about the technical, they don't care about the science of it, they just want to fight. And that's not what boxing is. Sometimes you just don't understand it, and that's why we get a lot of kids who are troubled youth, kids who typically on the street would get into trouble. They just don't have that outlet, and that's what boxing really provides, and it provides different outlets to different people in different ways. So through boxing, not only did I find a home, I found family, I found love, I forgot about that one, but found everything that kind of created who I am and what's important to me, but as well, I learned that it's much bigger than myself. Everything that I've done with boxing, I need to share. I mean, you only live one life, and what you leave behind you is probably more important than the life that you live yourself. That's something that I probably never would have realized until I picked up the sport of boxing. For Fight to End Cancer, it's something that at the end of the day is so much bigger than me. I learned that, again, I started it because it's something that I wanted to do. It's a fight that I wanted to fight. But quickly after I started it, I found out that it was really everyone else's fight that mattered to me. And that's what I hope to see continue on past the time where maybe I have the time to fight or the energy to fight, but also, beyond my life. I hope that this legacy will continue and people will continue fighting for what's important to them. I mean, boxing's been all around, probably one of the oldest sports, 3,000 years before any of us, and it'll be around much longer than me. The gym itself, the sport itself, I do hope that it continues and that our kids that we have coached, the kids that we've touched the lives of, continue to touch the lives of others and use the sport to do the same. And love, I mean, hopefully we continue our legacy beyond ourselves as well, and how that looks. It's usually another family and continuing on there, and hopefully whatever child that we have wants to continue boxing, because it's pretty awesome. But if not, at the very least, take the values and the I think it would be the value system that we've built and that we understand, and the integrity that we've built around the community that we have. That ends up being the legacy that we leave behind as well.